Dalton, Riley, Wolves and wagers. Devin Booker looked like a top 5 player in the NBA tonight, Rye. I'll touch a little bit on the Suns, but I'm going to pass it over to you first and let you really get after it and talk about the Wolves on this episode, Rye. I'll give you the reins for this
Hey,
episode.
when you texted me, you said I'll give you the reins for this, and I got a lot to go over. I'm gonna go off a bit here. It's gonna start in the first half. It's where most of my notes came from. When I had done all this stuff, it was at halftime, and I was looking over things. Right, 76-54 for a defense that's been so good this year, number one in the league. You go up 76 points. Part of that, Josh Okogie making 3 threes. I mean, okay, that happens, right? It's Drew Eubanks making his first 3 of the season. Happens. They're wide open looks, which I don't love. You got to contest a little better, but you're going to live at those shots, especially when you got Devin Booker and Kevin Durant on the floor. You're going to live at those shots. But 76 points is still way too much. Second game in a row where Ant really hasn't had it. 11 points on 3 of 11 in the first half. He finished with 13. He did have 2 boards and 3 assists to go with it in the first half. It's still not great. I don't know what they need to do to get him going. I know I texted you saying one thing I'd like from him to do better is when he drives into the paint, makes a great move to get around his initial defender or to get a step on his initial defender, especially when it's a guy like Grayson Allen. Why are you shooting a fadeaway like a layup off glass? Not even really a layup at that point. It's like an 8-foot shot. Go in there, go up strong. He's gonna foul you. You're probably gonna get an M1, and if you don't finish, you're gonna get 2 froze. That guy can't guard you. That goes back to last game where the same stuff was happening. Kind of just been driving me crazy a little bit. Still not ultra worried about Ant as far as his own game, but I do want to see some more from Finch. I know I also was telling you how I wasn't pleased with how it seems every single set for him as far as like, okay, let's get Ant going. Same thing. Rudy, come set a screen. That's not working right now. The Warriors figured it out in game 2, and the Suns did the same exact thing. As soon as Rudy comes to set that screen, they double Ant and they make him pass the ball, and the Wolves don't have good enough pieces as of now, or they just haven't made the shots to make them pay for that. So at some point, you either got to run like an actual offense and let Ant get his shots through the flow of it, or let him go ISO, because him getting set by that Rudy screen just is not working because they're instantly blitzing him and trapping him, and it ends up with somebody getting a corner 3 that doesn't fall. And if the shots are falling, then then the team has to respect that and will maybe get out of it. But as of now, I think for the foreseeable future, teams are going to play Ant the exact same way the Suns and Warriors have the past 2 games, and that could be troublesome. I will say a positive, it's Karl-Anthony Towns. That helps supplement the offense, especially when Ant's not going. And Cat had a great game tonight. I mean, he had on 10 of 17 shooting, really efficient, 25 points, 7 boards, 2 assists. The three-pointer was falling again a little bit, but the jumpers in general were. He was getting to the paint. It seemed like he wanted to drive first, which I like. When you have these smaller guys on you or like lesser defenders, that's feeds into Karl-Anthony Towns' game is to drive. Only 1 turnover for Ant. I'm just seeing that now when I'm looking at my thing here. So that's really the only good thing I saw from him in a 4 for 16 night. But love what I saw from Cat. So that's one of the few positives to take away from tonight. I'm going to stick with the theme of the first half. Mike Conley, 10 points. Like that a lot. But here comes the bad. KD, 6 of 8, 17 points. Right? Booker, 7 of 12, 18, 4 and 3. This is just in one half, right? This is one half of hoops with Booker on a minutes restriction. And the one that kills me, or the 2, I guess, Drew Eubanks, 6 of 8, 13 points at half. Josh Okogie, 3 for 3, all of those coming from deep, 10 points at half. He shot 63%, 10 of 17 from deep.
You're just not going to beat the Suns when that happens. It's that plain and simple. And, obviously a lot of that rides on the Wolves defense, but if Devin Booker's playing like this, coming off, he hasn't played in 8-9 games, hasn't played since opening night, comes in 31, 5 and 4 on 54% shooting. The Suns as a team on 85 shots tonight, 85 shots, shot 60%. 60. And then, okay, how was from beyond the 3-point line? 17 of 31, 54.8%. You're just not going to beat the Suns with all this talent down in Phoenix, especially when Ant and Rudy Gobert aren't playing at their best. But Devin Booker looked – I'm just going to say this. We're going to have our power rankings for our top 25 players coming out soon, and the list is very short of players who are ahead of Devin Booker for not only this season, but you got to remember that guy's not very old, so he's going to be around the Western Conference for a long time, and he just looks troublesome. But KD throwing back the clock as well. I think he had 31, so when those two are doing their thing, not a lot of teams are going to beat them. And I had them at 3 in my power rankings for this reason, and they probably should even be higher than that after a performance like tonight. And Devin Booker's only going to continue to play more minutes, and he had 31 points in 25 minutes tonight. That's not looking good for the rest of the league. But I'll jump back to you, Ryan, to talk a little bit more about the Wolves side of things.
Yeah, and actually, I'll start with the Suns here for a moment. When you bring up Devin Booker, there's so much to look at, all the positives. We're both huge Booker fans. We have been for years, dating back probably to when he dropped 70. Was that his second year in the league or third year, whatever it was? One thing I didn't like, and this is exactly how Booker pretty much got every one of his buckets, Wolves playing drop coverage with Rudy, right? Because they'd set a pick and roll, and Rudy would drop. Ant would have to chase around the backside, and maybe it's fatigue setting in, maybe it's whatever. But Ant wasn't getting around those screens, or Jaden, whoever was chasing him at that moment in time. Rudy would drop, and it's like you're giving Devin Booker a 17-foot mid-range, wide open jumper. That's the shot you're okay with. And same thing at the top of the key. Same thing. Rudy would drop, Ant would chase around. Okay, you're giving Booker a wide open look from dead-on three-point land. Like you're just asking to get torched, and you did. You absolutely did. Now maybe it's just kind of like, pick your poison type thing, because when KD's cooking too, there's only so much you can do defensively. But even on the back end of a back-to-back on a successful road trip, some might call it a scheduled loss, still would have liked to seen some more effort and at least a better game plan. It just didn't look like – it looked like Finch was outmatched today, and we've been big Finch believers this year. But today was kind of it looked like the Suns were getting everything they wanted and had done their homework.
Yeah, and D-Book, to be honest with you, I didn't really even see his injury opening night when he had 31 and 13. And I think the Suns were playing a little cautious because he came out and dropped 8, 10 points in a blink of an eye. And I said, okay, I guess that's how the game's going to be. And ever since that point, the Suns never looked back. And it was 100-76. 100-76, Rye. I mean, I was thinking about going to this game.
Yeah, I think that I didn't. That was in the third quarter.
Waste of money. Yeah, I legitimately kind of, thought to myself, would I have left with 40 seconds left in the third? And the Wolves just are embarrassing themselves out there. And nights like this are going to happen. It's the NBA, and it's the Phoenix freaking Suns. I mean, you look at the title odds after this game, I don't think there's going to be a lot of teams ahead of Phoenix. And that's because Kevin Durant was unbelievable tonight. I mean, unguardable. Jaden McDaniels had nothing for him, and I don't think that was Jaden McDaniels' fault. I mean, Kevin Durant is just one of the greatest scorers in the history of the NBA, and it's that plain and simple. And even at this age, he can still drop 31 and make it look effortless. I mean, absolutely effortless. And when he's cooking, D-Book's cooking, and man, mind you, Bradley Beal did not even suit up tonight. And shout out to Mike Conley. The one guy I was worried about actually came to play and was the easiest prop of the night, in my opinion. 10 at half. So
first half.
9.5 was like stealing, candy from a baby. But we were both kind of worried about Mike against Beal, and Beal didn't even play in this matchup. And Devin Booker, minutes restriction or not, it didn't matter in tonight's game. He just came out from the start. He showcased the energy, and the Wolves came out a little sluggish, and you're just not going to be able to overcome a deficit when Kevin Durant's then adding on top of that in between D-Book. So it was fun to watch, but I was just hoping for a little closer game, especially at the end. Like, I wanted to see the starters out there in the fourth quarter. And even if it does result in a Wolves loss, you want to be able to showcase that, hey, we just went and beat Golden State twice in 3 days, and we're going to at least compete here. And this is a gauntlet. 3 games in 4 days, and Golden State twice, and Phoenix with D-Book back. Like, you went 2 out of 3, you're happier than a clam every other year except this year because you're obviously off to a red-hot start. This is your first loss in a long time. Wolves After Dark, when's the last time? It feels like forever we've talked, about the negatives, So 7 in a row, lot to be excited about. But this was a tough one because I did have the Suns in front of the Wolves in my power rankings. I'm guessing they're going to slide up in yours whenever we do it next, regardless of how they perform. Because when it comes down to it, you put Devin Booker, KD, and Bradley Beal in a 7-game series. There's not a lot of teams beating the Suns, right?
Yeah, they definitely will be sliding up. I mean, it hurts. It was tough to put them. They're a tough team to like judge as far as power rankings, just because okay, their record's not good, but their team is obviously really, really good. So it's like, where do you put them this early in the season? But man, I got to talk about Rudy Gobert. I haven't yet tonight, too much at least.
Yeah.
And a guy I've given a lot of love to this year, a lot of love to Rudy, and I still will. I still think he's a very good player for this team and fills a lot of holes. But this field goal percentage, it's starting to drive me a little bit crazy. Right, a guy who does not shoot. It feels like it's the 3rd or 4th time I've said this. A guy who does not shoot outside of 4 feet, shooting 2 of 5 tonight. What was the other night? It was under 50%. He had that 0 of 6 night. You are a center around the rim. He finished that one nice lob pass from Ant in the first half, which was nice. But then I think it was a Kyle Anderson one, did the same thing, or maybe it was a Cat or Mike. I can't really remember who passed it, but and he just blew it. It's like, dude, just go and dunk that. Catch the lob pass and dunk it. Why are you trying to tap it in? You're right at the rim, and there's nobody really on you contesting. And it rolls around the rim, rolls off. They get the board. Those possessions add up over time, right? They really do. I just wasn't impressed with Rudy. In 25 minutes is all he played tonight. He had 2 turnovers. Just another bad Rudy night. Two bad Rudy nights in a row. 2 bad Ant nights in a row. Not a good recipe going forward.
Yeah, and the only Minnesota Timberwolves that I'm actually going to touch on in this episode, which is very surprising, but it's Jaden McDaniels. And the reason I want to talk about him is he's -5 in 22 minutes. And obviously he's had some foul trouble, but on some of those calls, there's nothing anybody else can do when you're trying to guard a guy like Kevin Durant. Because not only do you got to worry about a guy like Devin Booker, but your main priority is trying to stop a former MVP, scoring champ, 7-foot, absolute maniac of a player. And when you look at it from a standpoint of who can stop Kevin Durant in this league, that list is very short. Who's on that list? Even with him being at this age, the list is not very large. Right. And Jaden 6 of 10 now, obviously behind the 3-point line, he needs to improve. But if he does improve that, I got to give him his roses. He was the only guy who looked like he belonged. But obviously Cat was fantastic again. But Jaden McDaniels, got to talk about him a little bit. But he's the only Timberwolf that I'm actually going to touch on tonight, right?
Yeah, much better. He's playing much better now, right? At the beginning of the season, now I get calf injury part of it, minutes restriction, wasn't really getting many shots up. He's playing much better ball now, and he is a pivotal part of this team. We've talked before, off camera, how he's arguably the second most important player on the Timberwolves. That's how valuable he is. Now with Cat playing the way he is, probably slides.
Yeah.
And the way Rudy was playing at the beginning of the year, he was probably the 4th most important. But regardless, day in, day out, you need him to play. Like you said, it wasn't his fault tonight on KD. He was contesting everything. It's just when a 7-footer is making pull-up J's in your face, like you said, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nobody that's going to stop that. And reminder, when KD made his Phoenix debut, that was against the Wolves. Jaden clamped him up. He was 5 of 18 or something from the floor, something like that.
Oh yeah, he was. You're right.
So, but tonight the shots were falling, and that's just the way it is. It's like you said, all-time great scorer, arguably, may I say, the greatest pure scorer of all time in the association. But overall, I mean, just they look fatigued. You could tell they were coming off a back-to-back, but not super encouraging here from a lot of the players tonight. I guess I did like what Shake and Nas were able to do off the bench a little bit, but at that point when the game's already over, it's hard to take anything from that.
Yeah, and I guess I could maybe touch a little bit on, Anthony Edwards has done so much for this team. Like, that's why I'm fine with a performance like tonight. And I seriously say that because everything that he's done for Minnesota leading up to this point, and even leading back into last season when Cat was missing a lot of time. Like, he only played 29 games last season. And then we know who was the only guy to show up really in the Nuggets series outside of guys like Nikhil Alexander-Walker. You got to give those guys some respect. But I think you got to be able to, in these matchups, not embarrass yourself. And there was times when that was the case. And if you want to be a top 4 seed in the West, Phoenix is going to be one of those teams that you have to compete with. Dallas, Denver. So that's 3 right there. So now you're competing against everybody. Now I'm looking at the Kings on the television, and they're up 20, and it's not even the fourth quarter against the Lakers. So they're only going to get better. And then you got teams like Golden State, who they're going to be there, regardless of if we've beaten them twice in Golden State. So these are games where we at least have to be competitive in the fourth quarter and not get a text and think about like, hey, should we jump on before the game's over on Wolves After Dark? Like, we want to be able to not say that, because there has been so many years in our Timberwolves lifetime where we could have done that easily. Where, oh my gosh, we got Luke Rittenauer out there. We're down 30,
Shout out Luke.
We're down 35. We could jump on for an episode before the fourth even starts. But for this team, with all the talent, all the money that's been invested, not only on this roster, but Tim Connolly owns part of the organization, we need to be able to show up in big games like this. But hey, I'm fine with 2-1 in this little short road stretch. I'm happy, still pumped about the season. Do you got anything else you want to touch on, Ryan, for this episode?
Yeah, it just on Saturday, you get 2 days off now, right? You come off a back-to-back. You got Thursday night off, you got Friday night off, and then you go to the Pelicans to finish this road trip. You go win on the road against New Orleans. That's a 3-1 road trip against the Pelicans, who are projected play-in playoff team, right? I know they're not off to the greatest start. Against the Warriors, contender, in my opinion, still at this point. And then the Suns, uber contender, right? You go 3-1 against those teams in a 4-game road trip. You're happy as a clam. You'll absolutely take that. Win there would take the taste out of your mouth. But like you said, you just want to at least have some competitive ball. Like they tried to make it interesting in the fourth, where it was down to 18, I think, and Jaden missed a 3 that kind of went in and out that would have got it to 15. And then Finch brought Cat Nat off the bench when there was like 6.5 to go. Then he ended up pulling him again with like 4.5 to go. They didn't play much after that. But I mean, a lot to take away from this game, but it's not encouraging either that 2 of your 3 losses have been pretty bad ones, right? Bad one to the Hawks. Like, yeah, you actually ended up losing by double digits, but that one was bad because you blew a huge lead. This one was bad because it looked like you were outmatched from 3 minutes in and on, right? Because it was, I think I texted you, I was like, this is a sick game, right? It's 10-10. Everybody's making shots. Looks like we're going to be in for a barn burner. And then I think the Wolves scored 6 points over the next 6 minutes or as soon as I sent that text. So, I mean, but that's about all I have to add. I mean, I'm looking forward to Saturday. That would take away a lot of this bad taste, like I said. But you got anything else?
Yeah, so I think I'll kind of end it by saying, even though Devin Booker got the best of Ant tonight, and that's obvious, there's no argument, this is not the last that you'll see of this duo, either playing in the playoffs when it matters or in April when we have 2 matchups, and we'll be at one of those games. And I cannot wait to watch Anthony Edwards get another opportunity to step on this Phoenix floor, because there's 3 straight games now down in Phoenix that they haven't really even been competitive. There's been points where they'll get it to 4 or they'll get it to 5, but Anthony Edwards, I think, is going to show up next time, and I cannot wait for that matchup with Devin Booker. But I'll let you close it out, Ryan.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned 3 straight games now, dating back to last year. Haven't even been competitive at the Footprint Center. We were at both of the ones in Phoenix last year. I mean, your dad's starting an automatic chant for Rudy Gobert at the free throw line. It was at that point of the game, you know. I mean, it just was not competitive whatsoever.
No.
So hopefully, when we go in April, it is a bit more competitive. But yeah, overall, not a lot of positives to take away, but still 8-3 to start the year. If you told us that, hey, Timberwolves are going to start 8-3, we'll say, yep, book it. Absolutely. We'll be so happy with that. So we're still excited for this team, and we'll see how they respond. I really am excited to see how they respond on Saturday to see, okay, is this team gritty? Is this team different than years past? But time will tell then. But we'll be back again tomorrow, I think, with a player power rankings video. I might have to drop Ant a slot or two. But until then, we'll see you guys later.